Message of introduction. Written introductions are a vital part of networking. When you have contacts or associates who you think might benefit from knowing one another, send an introduction to start the dialogue between the two. In business, most introductions are made by email. In some situations, you may still use a printed letter. If you do write a letter, bear in mind that it will likely be more formal than an email introduction. Introduction. The purpose of an introduction is to connect people who have common interests. An introduction is different from a letter of recommendation, which provides a detailed endorsement of the person. An introduction is usually shorter and less detailed than a letter of recommendation. Consider what your readers' attitudes are likely to be. Often you will have discussed the introduction with one or both parties prior to sending it, to assess the level of interest and to obtain permission. Even if you have discussed it before, though, remember that your readers don't know each other and will need to be reminded about the reason for the introduction. Unless it's a very brief and uncomplicated introduction, you're wise to spend at least a little time brainstorming the best way to frame the introduction. What information can you provide that will make the parties interested in one another? Most business introductions are brief, so don't require a lot of organizing. However, in some situations, you should be sensitive to rank and seniority and ensure that you address the senior party first. The model outline provides guidance. It's not a bad idea to review your draft, even if it is very brief, before you send it out. Read over the introduction from the point of view of both parties. Is it clear why you're writing? Do you provide enough information about each party to make them interested in contacting each other? If not, revise until it works. Model outline. An introductory message should be brief and to the point. Salutation. Address both parties in the salutation. The senior party should be named first. Opening. Use your first sentence to state that you're making an introduction. Middle. State briefly why you think the parties might be interested in meeting. Conclusion. If you are asking for a favor, explicitly or implicitly, thank the reader who might be granting the favor. End on a note of good wishes to both parties. Do get consent from both parties before you make the introduction if you feel there is any chance that either might be uncomfortable or unwilling. An unwanted introduction out of the blue can be very awkward, and it won't help your relationship with the reader. Do address both readers in your salutation. It's usually wise to place the name of the senior or more powerful person first in the salutation. Do remind the readers of the context of the introduction if you have mentioned it to them before. Do offer a bit of information about both of the parties being introduced. In a quick email, just a sentence can be enough. Do, if you are making the introduction specifically to serve the needs of one party, say so. Do mention how you met the parties, if that seems relevant. Do suggest how forging this connection could be beneficial for each of the readers. However, if it is clear that one party will benefit far more than the other, don't feel you need to invent benefits for the party who is granting the favor. Do close by thanking the party who is granting the favor. Wish both readers well. Don't make an introduction if you are at all uncomfortable about it. An introduction is an implied recommendation, so don't put your reputation on the line if you have any doubts about either party. Don't go overboard with your praise for one or both parties. Remember, this is just an introduction, not a full-blown recommendation. Don't go on too long. Keep the introduction brief and concise. If you wish to provide background information about either party, consider sending a bio or a link to that person's website either in this message or in a separate one. Don't overstate the benefits of the introduction to both parties when it is clear a favor is being asked. If you are introducing a young graduate to an executive, for instance, it is clear that the introduction will likely have greater business benefit to the younger person. Don't say anything to suggest that either of your readers is obliged to go forward with the meeting. Simply make the introduction and allow them to decide how to proceed. Don't offer to make arrangements for a meeting unless you are certain both parties are on board and comfortable with your playing this role. Not like this. Dear Smythe, Dear Ron, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Smythe. Ron is a friend of mine from Hughes who has a background in commercial real estate and is hoping to get back into the field. I would very much appreciate it if you had the time to speak with him. Veronica should have cleared this with Smythe first. She's putting him on the spot with this introduction. Ron, Smythe is the sailing friend I mentioned who runs the tenant rep agency in the city. His business is extremely successful. No one can give you better advice. Poor Smythe. Is Ron going to ask him for a job? Does he need this additional complication in his life? He was completely blindsided by this message. I know you'll have a lot to talk about, and I hope the connection will be helpful for you both. All the best, Veronica. It's difficult to see how Smythe will be helped by this connection, since it's obvious that Ron is the one who needs help. Like this. Dear Smythe, Dear Ron, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Smythe. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with Ron. Veronica has evidently communicated with Smythe prior to the introduction and received his okay. She will have briefed Smythe on Ron's background and his reasons for wanting to speak with Smythe. I know how busy you are, and I appreciate it. Veronica is straightforward that the introduction is really about Smythe helping Ron, and she thanks Smythe for his time. I know you'll have a lot to talk about, and I hope you will enjoy meeting each other. Veronica does not pretend that Ron, who is obviously junior, will help Smythe professionally, but this conclusion is pleasant and courteous and should put them both at ease. All the best, Veronica. Message of commendation. A message of commendation conveys recognition of someone's achievements or deeds. You can send it to the individual you wish to commend or to her supervisor or to both. You might send a commendation to a person in your own organization or in a business you have worked with. A letter of commendation is similar to a testimonial written for a business. Refer to the upcoming section, Testimonial. While the aim of a testimonial is typically to promote a business, the aim of a commendation is to promote an individual. A message of commendation may be an email or a printed letter. Generally, a printed letter is more formal and carries more weight. Introduction. A message of commendation may serve several purposes. It may be a simple acknowledgement of someone's achievement or good performance. It's also kind of a thank you. As such, it can strengthen relationships and build goodwill. In addition, it can serve as a formal acknowledgement of someone's achievement. It may be placed into an employee's records. This kind of endorsement may come into play during future decisions about compensation or promotion. Your reader may be the person being commended or her supervisor. Even if you address the message to the commendee in question, you should think from the point of view of her supervisor. As you brainstorm, choose details that show most clearly the benefit of the person's actions. If a person was exceptionally courteous, that's nice, but if the courtesy helped the company secure a valuable account, that counts for more. The model outline provides an organizational strategy you can use. Your initial draft may be too long, particularly if you are recounting an incident. It's a good idea to write it all out and revise later, both for length and for impact. Model outline. A message of commendation should be explicit and concise. Opening. Let the reader know your purpose for writing at the very beginning of the message. Middle. Provide details about what the commendee did and the effect her action had on you. Conclusion. As you close, repeat your message of commendation, thank the reader, and end on a note of goodwill. Do send your commendation in a timely fashion. It will have more impact if it arrives soon after the event or incident you're writing about. Do try to send the message to the right person. Find the name of the commendee's supervisor if possible. Do state the purpose of your message explicitly in the first sentence or, at the very least, in the first paragraph. Do be specific about the achievement or accomplishment. Show that you have personal familiarity with it. Do be explicit about the value of the accomplishment to the organization. A commendation will be most useful to the recipient when you can show that her action ultimately benefited the organization. Don't write a commendation in a slapdash way. If you're going to do it, take the time to make it as helpful to the commendee as possible. Don't put anything confidential in the message. One of the primary purposes of a commendation is to be seen by people. You cannot control who will see your message in the future. A business might even put it on its website, so be sure there's nothing in it that might embarrass or incriminate anyone. Don't go on too long. Keep the message succinct. If it is possible to cut a word out, always cut it out. George Orwell, novelist and essayist. Don't recommend a course of action regarding the person. Don't recommend a promotion or a raise. Your reader knows her business. Don't trash other employees in the process of praising one. Don't say anything to suggest that the person has asked you to write on her behalf or has told you what to say. Your commendation is more valuable if it hasn't been choreographed by the commendee. Not like this. To the manager. The letter would be more effective directed to the appropriate individual. Last Saturday, May 5th, I was shopping in better dresses on the 3rd floor. I was looking for a dress to wear to a friend's wedding. While I was shopping, your employee, Patricia Benzman, approached me and offered to help. This happens so rarely, it got my attention. This implied criticism of the other staff isn't really helpful. I didn't have great expectations, but Patricia surprised me. She knows her stock, she knows her designers, and she really helped me. She pointed me toward a couple of really nice dresses. When I couldn't find my size, she showed me I could wear the same thing in a petite and told me which size. This narrative would have more impact if Caroline took the time to condense it. I was very pleased with the selections she recommended. I understand that Patricia is currently a temp and has applied for a full-time permanent position at Fulton's. This comment might make the reader suspect that Patricia asked for the commendation, which could undermine its effectiveness. I can't understand why you haven't grabbed her yet. She should be managing the department. Except that's what the reader is doing. She is head and shoulders better than the average Fulton's employees, who stand around talking to each other and ignoring customers. This may be true, but Caroline shouldn't praise Patricia at the expense of the other store employees. She's better off just focusing on Patricia's performance. Please hire her and promote her. It's better not to make specific human resources-related requests in a commendation letter. Sincerely, signed Caroline Walls. Caroline Walls. Like this. Gina Quayle, Head of Retail Staffing, Fulton's Department Store, May 8, 2012. By finding the appropriate person to write to, Caroline can be sure the letter gets into the hands of someone who can help Patricia. Dear Ms. Quayle, last Saturday, May 5th, your employee, Patricia Benzman, was exceptionally helpful to me. Caroline is smart to put her commendation of Patricia in the first sentence of the letter. I was shopping in better dresses on the 3rd floor, looking for a dress to wear to a wedding. Patricia really knows her stock and her designers, and she took the time to make some excellent suggestions. When I had trouble finding my size, Patricia showed me the right size of petite to try. I never would have thought of this, and I will be using this trick frequently in the future. Caroline makes the point that Patricia has shown her how to buy dresses more successfully, which should please the management of Fulton's. Because Patricia was so knowledgeable and helpful, I ended up buying 2 silk dresses instead of the one I went for. By showing that Patricia's helpfulness led to a larger purchase, Caroline demonstrates the value of this sales associate to the business. It's rare to find a sales associate with the kind of knowledge and interest in customers that Patricia displays. Caroline makes the point that Patricia outperforms the other sales associates without insulting them or the store. She is truly an asset to Fulton's. I will certainly look for her the next time I'm in. Thank you for having such a fine associate on your staff. Caroline suggests that Fulton's hire and promote Patricia without doing so explicitly, and she indicates that having Patricia on staff reflects well on the store. Sincerely, signed Caroline Walls. Caroline Walls. Letter of Recommendation. At some point, you may be asked to provide a letter of recommendation for someone you know, perhaps an employee who is applying for another position, or a young person applying for school or college. If so, you're in the happy position to do someone a great deal of good. Writing a letter of recommendation is a serious responsibility, and you should plan to invest some time and effort in making your letter of recommendation as convincing and powerful as possible. Introduction. The purpose of a letter of recommendation is to offer your personal and professional insight into the fitness of a candidate. Your letter can testify for the candidate in a way that her resume or class transcript cannot. The reader of a letter of recommendation is hoping to get a sense of who the applicant is, what she can do, and if she will be a good fit for the job, academic program, or other opportunity. As you plan your letter, brainstorm from your reader's point of view. What will he be expecting or hoping to hear from you? What special things can you tell him about the candidate that the rest of her record may not demonstrate? Think about what the new environment will demand of the candidate and provide details that indicate she'll do well in that setting. The model outline contains a sample organizational approach for your letter of recommendation. Allow yourself plenty of time to write and revise several drafts of your letter of recommendation. Don't let the deadline creep up on you and force you to write the letter at the last minute. It's very likely your first draft will be too long. Write it all out and take a break from it. As you revise, consider your reader's likely response and revise to sharpen and condense the message. Proofread carefully to ensure you've left no typos or other errors that might undermine the credibility of your message. Model outline. A letter of recommendation should be 1 or 2 pages long. Opening. Announce at the very beginning of your letter who you're writing for and for what purpose. State explicitly that you recommend the candidate. Describe your relationship with the candidate and how long you have known her. Middle. Choose several points to discuss and develop those. A laundry list of positive attributes will be less impressive than a thorough discussion of 3 or 4. Conclusion. Close your letter by restating your endorsement of the candidate and hoping she will be successful in her application. Thank the reader for his consideration. Finally, let the reader know you are prepared to answer any questions he might have. Do ensure you have all the information you need to write an effective letter. Understand the candidate's objective in asking for a letter of recommendation. It can be helpful to have a copy of the applicant's resume on hand so that your comments are consistent with the candidate's work history. Do announce in your first paragraph who you're writing for and why. Your first reference to the candidate should include both first and last name. Do use a businesslike tone. Even if you know the candidate personally, your letter will carry more weight if your point of view is professional. Do make a clear statement early in the letter about how strong your support for the candidate is. Opening paragraphs make a powerful impression. Don't wait until the end of the letter to let your reader know how you really feel. Do let your reader know how long you've known the person you're writing for and in what capacity. Do be specific and analytical about the person's qualities and accomplishments. Do answer any questions you've been asked. For instance, if you've been given an application form that requests specific information about the candidate, be sure to supply it. Do close your letter by repeating how strong your support is for the person and make yourself available should the reader have any questions. Do follow any instructions you have been given about how to submit the recommendation. Don't agree to write a letter of recommendation for someone you feel is unqualified, someone you really can't support, or someone you don't really know. A lukewarm or vague letter of recommendation can cause damage, and it's better just to say no if you feel you can't offer good support. Don't overstate the case. Unless the candidate really is the best employee you've ever had, avoid making such hyperbolic statements and stick to the plain truth. Don't ignore weaknesses. If you're asked to write about the candidate's shortcomings, write about a weakness that can be overcome, or describe how the candidate is already overcoming it. Don't rely too much on vague descriptive terms like great, superior, and outstanding. Instead, focus on the candidate's achievements, and the reader will get the point. Don't go on too long. Your letter should be no longer than 2 pages. Some applications will specify a length or provide a form to complete. If you go over the limit, you can actually hurt the candidate. Keeping the length under control will actually improve your letter by forcing you to select the most pertinent details and sharpen your argument. Not like this. To the hiring manager. I am writing to recommend Susan McCord for employment. Susan worked for Gibbons as database manager for 7 years and did an extraordinary job for us. Rob mentions Susan's job title and the length of her employment, but he doesn't mention what their relationship was. This opening paragraph is not as compelling as it could be. Susan was an outstanding employee. This statement is so vague it suggests Rob didn't really know Susan very well or what she did. As database manager, Susan was our go-to person for all of our database issues. This seems self-evident. It would be more compelling if Rob described Susan's responsibilities more specifically. Susan and her team worked extremely hard and always made deadlines, which were sometimes very tight. Throughout it all, Susan was always cheerful and helpful. We are all very sorry to see her go. Rob is clearly offering support for Susan, but overall his comments are rather vague and general. It is my pleasure to offer my support for Susan. If I can give you any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me at rstraker@gibbonintl.com. Sincerely, signed, Rob Straker. Rob Straker. Like this. To the hiring manager. It is my great pleasure to recommend Susan McCord for employment. I supervised Susan in her job of database manager at Gibbons International for 6 years. Rob notes how long he has known Susan and in what capacity. We are all very sorry that Susan has decided to leave Chicago, but I am very pleased to offer my strongest possible recommendation for her in her new home. Rob notes the strength of his support for Susan, his strongest possible recommendation. The opening paragraph is very strong. Susan headed a team that provided data for 7 diverse groups of our organization, and she always carried out her work with diligence and aplomb. The data division received many requests for data, often sliced into unusual configurations. It's part of marketers' jobs to look for unusual and potentially fruitful patterns in data, and Susan's familiarity with our data and our software made these creative searches very successful. Many requests came in at the last minute, and Susan was ever unflappable, meeting one insane deadline after another. Rob supplies a description of Susan's job, the difficulties it entailed, and how Susan successfully coped with those difficulties. In spite of her very high-stress and high-stakes position, Susan carried out her responsibilities with an almost superhuman goodwill. She was always a pleasure to be around and happy to do whatever it took to get the job done. I should also mention that Susan was an exemplary role model and guide for the staff who reported to her. Many of her staff were recent graduates getting their first taste of a real job. Susan was brilliant at shepherding these entry-level employees, coaching them through stressful periods, and helping them grow into responsible and productive professionals. Susan's entire team was always ready to accept any challenge with diligence and good humor. This paragraph gives a vivid sense of what the job was like and that Susan made a very special contribution. In closing, it is my pleasure to offer Susan my very strongest recommendation. If I can give you any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me at rstraker@gibbonintl.com. Sincerely, signed Rob Straker. Rob Straker. Rob repeats his endorsement of Susan in the closing of the letter. LinkedIn recommendations. Recruiters and hiring managers do look at recommendations on LinkedIn. While those recommendations may not make or break an application, they can help. To make your recommendation as useful as possible, follow these guidelines. Provide a brief summary of how you know the candidate. Offer specifics about the candidate's performance using measurable results wherever possible. Focus on transferable skills, since you don't know what positions the candidates might be applying for. Provide examples of the candidate's performance. Tell a story. For business owners, focus on how they stand out from the competition. Limit the recommendation to 60 to 100 words. Agenda. An agenda helps participants prepare for a meeting by letting them know what topics will be discussed and what deliverables need to be prepared. An agenda also helps the meeting leader and participants keep the meeting on track. Afterward, an agenda can help provide structure and input for the preparation of the meeting notes or minutes. Agendas are usually circulated by email prior to meetings. It is helpful to have a way for participants to refer to the agenda during the meeting, so many people also provide printed copies of the agenda. Introduction. The purpose of a meeting agenda is to let participants know what topics will be discussed in the meeting and what preparations they need to make. Ultimately, the purpose of an agenda is to ensure that meeting time is used productively and efficiently. The agenda is prepared primarily for the benefit of its readers so that everyone can be prepared and no one is blindsided by surprises during the meeting. As you prepare your agenda, think about what your readers need and expect. If the reason for the meeting is very straightforward, you may not need to do much brainstorming. That will depend entirely on the group and the organization. Some people circulate a draft to solicit input from others before finalizing the agenda. Most groups that meet regularly have a template that they use over and over, swapping out the details. The model outline will help you organize your agenda. An agenda is often little more than a list of topics, so you don't have to worry about tone in your draft. Even if you don't circulate a draft widely, it's a good idea to have someone else check over your draft to ensure completeness. Revise according to their feedback. Model outline. An agenda provides a quick roadmap for a meeting. Heading. Include the title of the working group or meeting, if applicable, the date and the place of the meeting, and the anticipated attendees. Body. List the topics to be covered in order of discussion. Consider including the length of time budgeted for each item and the person responsible for that item. Conclusion. Note the date of the next meeting, if applicable. Do note the time and place of the meeting as well as the names of the expected participants. If the meeting will take place over the phone, note the call-in details. Do list the topics to be covered in the meeting. Keep these lines brief and concise. Do note the approximate amount of time to be devoted to each topic on the agenda. Providing the timing can help participants stay on schedule and prevent the meeting from running late. Make sure your time segments add up correctly before you finalize the agenda. Do note the individual responsible for each topic on the agenda, if applicable. Do use a template. If you expect to be responsible for creating the agendas for a series of meetings, develop an agenda template to help you save time in the future and create a standard that the group will expect. Don't provide a lot of background information in the agenda itself. If participants need background information, attach that information to the agenda. The agenda itself should be an easily scannable roadmap of the meeting. Don't expect to run a meeting off an incomplete agenda. Allow yourself plenty of time to solicit input on topics from others. Coming into a meeting and realizing the agenda is incomplete defeats the purpose of having an agenda to organize your time. Don't forget to update the agenda. If you are using a template or an agenda from an earlier meeting, remember to update items like meeting date and participants. Like this. Agenda. Lockstall Relocation Committee, June 7, 2013, 11:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 4th floor conference room. For Lockstall, Brian Berman, Jill McDougall, Stephanie Page, Lynn Yu. By phone, Sherry Burnt, Ray Paredes. For Omega Properties, Lynn Wheeler. Call in 888-999-0000, passcode 67540. Report on preliminary location visits, Brian and Lynn, 40 minutes. JPEGs attached. Sitevisits.zip. Report on employee surveys and interviews, Lynn, 15 minutes. Summary attached. Staff.survey.draft.docx. Report on proposed technology upgrades, Stephanie and Ray, 15 minutes. Next meeting, July 6th, time TBA. Please contact Barb Jacobs at 212-800-0101 or bjacobs@lockstall.net if you have any items you would like placed on the agenda for the next meeting. Business meeting announcement. Many groups rely exclusively on scheduling programs like Outlook to announce meetings and invite participants. If yours doesn't, you may need to compose your own meeting announcements. Writing a good announcement can be key to getting a good turnout and to ensuring that participants are prepared for their roles in the meeting. Introduction. The purpose of a meeting announcement goes beyond simply letting people know there will be a meeting. The announcement should also let people know the stakes of the meeting and motivate them to attend. If your readers are required to attend, your task is pretty straightforward. If not, you need to consider what information might make them want to attend the meeting. As you brainstorm, make sure you're including complete information about the meeting, both its logistics and the purpose behind it. Organize the announcement so that its purpose is very clear. Don't bury the lead. The tone you use as you draft will depend partly on your relationship with the readers. If you cannot compel them to attend the meeting, you'll need to put more energy into persuading them. Proofread your announcement very carefully before you send it out. If there are errors in the date, time, or place of the meeting, now is the time to catch them. rather than after all your colleagues have seen them and confusion has spread. Revise accordingly. Do develop the meeting agenda first. Include a copy of the agenda, or at least a summary of it, with the announcement. If you expect changes to the agenda before the meeting, let invitees know to expect an updated agenda. Do note the purpose of the meeting on the announcement. Do let readers know what's at stake. Is this meeting a routine touch-base status conference, or is it critical to a project or an account? Do include all the logistical information about the meeting: date, time, place, and expected duration. Do let readers know what, if anything, you expect them to do to prepare for the meeting. Do you want participants to provide a rundown of what they're doing? Do you want them to bring documents to share with each other? Let them know. Do use formatting to highlight important information. Use spacing, bullet points, and bolding to make it easy to scan for critical information. Do ask readers to RSVP and let them know how. Do send at least one reminder. Don't wait until the last minute. People are busy, and meetings called on short notice may not be well attended. Don't overwhelm the readers with too much information. The meeting announcement should be concise. If you wish to include background information, supply that information as an attachment rather than in the body of the announcement. Don't take your readers for granted. If you're the boss, you can make people attend. If you don't have the power to command, be sure you let your readers know why the meeting is important and that you appreciate their participation. Not like this. Team: Steve would like to meet about the website on Thursday at 11 o'clock. Where? Apologies for the short notice. Last-minute meetings can be annoying, but they can also suggest a sense of urgency. Letting readers know why the meeting has been called late can engage their interest. He'd appreciate it if you could bring your ideas about how the new site could serve us best. This is a good opportunity to appeal to the reader's interest. Why might the readers actually want to attend this meeting? It's very important that we get ideas from everyone, so please try to attend. Thanks, Amy. This invitation isn't particularly compelling and doesn't motivate readers to attend. The website is clearly going to happen anyway, so why make an effort to turn up? Like this. Team: Steve would like to meet about the website on Thursday at 11 in the 4th floor conference room. Maybe this is the same old meeting place, but it's helpful to be specific, and it makes the meeting seem more important. I know it's short notice, but he just booked time with a designer on Friday and would like to get input from everyone so we can ensure the site serves everyone's needs. Amy explains why the meeting is being called at short notice and indicates that the issue is fairly urgent. We need to get clarity on the following. Bullet point: social media to appeal to younger market, Twitter feed on homepage. Bullet point: content management system to allow everyone to update their own pages. Do people want this? Amy lets readers know the stakes, which would motivate people to attend. These are important issues, and people will want to contribute their 2 cents. Steve wants ideas from everyone, so please try to attend. Please RSVP to me by COB on Wednesday. Thanks, Amy. By setting an RSVP deadline, Amy reinforces the seriousness of the meeting. Minutes. The notes of a meeting, often known as minutes, provide a written record of the meeting. They include who attended, what was discussed, what decisions were made, and who was responsible for carrying out these decisions, action steps to be taken for next time, and issues that were tabled for the next meeting. Minutes of meetings are often circulated by email. Because minutes constitute an official record of a meeting, it is important that they be archived, either in print or electronic form. Introduction. Meeting notes serve several purposes. They provide an official record of the meeting and may constitute a legal record of a company's actions. Good meeting notes can ensure that all team members are working with the same information. Minutes can also serve as a blueprint for future action. Meeting minutes may have several different kinds of readers. People who attended the meeting may use them to jog their memories about decisions made and responsibilities, and people who did not attend the meeting may rely on the minutes as an accurate record of what happened. Keep the needs of these various readers in mind. If you have kept accurate notes during the meeting itself, you won't need to do much brainstorming. If your memory is fuzzy or your notes incomplete, you may need to ask other meeting participants to fill in the details. Minutes are generally organized according to the order in which topics were discussed. Most groups that meet regularly have a template for meeting notes. The model outline will help you organize your minutes. As you write your draft, use an objective and businesslike tone. Once you have completed a draft of your minutes, check that draft against the notes you took in the meeting. It's wise to send the draft to another person who attended the meeting to check for accuracy and to proofread the document. Revise the minutes according to the feedback you get from your colleague. Model outline. Meeting minutes provide a written record of what occurred in a meeting. Heading. Record the name of the group and the purpose of the meeting. Note the date and time as well as the names of those in attendance. Body. Record the topics discussed in chronological order. Note any decisions made and the people responsible for carrying out those decisions. Note any agenda items tabled for the next meeting. End. Note the time the meeting was adjourned and the date and time of the next meeting, if one was scheduled. Do record the minutes from an objective point of view, using a neutral and businesslike tone. Do record all attendees at the meeting. If someone joins the meeting late, make a note of the time they arrived. Do record all topics discussed and all decisions made. Note who is responsible for carrying out any actions to implement those decisions. Do comply with your group's policy about how to report votes. Some groups record how each member voted on questions, others keep this information confidential. Do format your meeting minutes for easy scanning. Do use the agenda. If there is an agenda for the meeting, it can be useful in organizing the meeting notes. Do ensure you are familiar with your organization's policies and preferences about meeting minutes. If possible, look at minutes from previous meetings as a model for yours. It is helpful for a working group to have continuity in the formatting and content of minutes over time. Do note the time and date of the next meeting if it has been decided. Do note your own name as the person recording the minutes. Do develop a template. If your group does not already have a preferred format for meeting minutes, create a template that can be used consistently in the future. You may want to look at a variety of sample minutes to help you decide how to format yours. Don't editorialize. Meeting minutes are an objective record of what happened at a meeting. It's not appropriate to offer commentary or opinions. Be careful that you don't betray your opinions through selective choice of detail or use a particular tone. Don't provide a blow-by-blow account of discussions or arguments. There is no need to record the opinions of individuals. Don't put anything confidential or sensitive in the minutes. Meeting minutes may have a wide readership beyond the attendees at the meeting and may be discoverable in the event of legal action. Many groups will go into executive session, or the equivalent, in order to discuss such issues off the record. If you have any question about what to include in the minutes, be sure to ask before you distribute them. Robert's Rules of Order. Some organizations, including many nonprofit organizations with governing boards, follow Robert's Rules of Order for their meeting procedures, including the taking of minutes. Robert's Rules of Order was first published in 1876 and continues to be updated for modern use. Visit http://www.robertsrules.com for more information. Like this. Meeting Notes. Lockstall Relocation Committee, June 7, 2013, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4th floor conference room. Attendance. For Lockstall, Brian Berman, Jill McDougall, Stephanie Page, Lynn Yu. By phone, Sherry Burnt, Ray Paredes. For Omega Properties, Lynn Wheeler. Report on preliminary location visits, Brian and Lynn. JPEGs attached. Sitevisits.zip. Brian and Lynn have made preliminary visits to 4 locations. 3 were in Midtown, 1 was on the far west side. Lynn clarified that the sites visited are not under consideration to lease. The purpose of these visits is simply to give us an idea of what's out there. She encouraged others to come along with Brian on future visits. Brian agreed. Brian will have Sam let us know when his next round of visits will be. Report on employee surveys and interviews, Lynn. Summary attached. Staff.surveys.draft.docx. Lynn reported on the results of a survey taken of all employees and a series of interviews done with division heads. Printed report is attached. Key findings. Office location. 78% of employees strongly prefer staying in Midtown. 96% of employees are concerned with added commuting time. 3% of employees say that added commuting time could cause them to resign. Workspace plan. 67% of employees are opposed to an open floor plan. 89% of employees would feel better about an open floor plan if they could telecommute. Lynn reported that division heads are concerned that their work groups stay together. Accounting is currently in 3 locations, and that is extremely difficult. Communications is concerned about noise levels in an open floor plan. HR has serious questions about confidentiality if we move to an open floor plan. Brian thanked Lynn for the report. After discussion, it was agreed to focus our search efforts on Midtown. Report on proposed technology upgrades, Stephanie and Ray. Stephanie and Ray reported that the system upgrades in Chicago were overall successful. Similar upgrades could be accomplished in the New York office. It would be costly and impractical to implement these upgrades before a move. Recommendation to work with what we have and upgrade when we are in a new space. It is easier to install needed wiring, etc., without furniture and people in the space. Lynn agreed. That conclusion was consistent with her experience. Brian asked Stephanie and Ray to begin pricing the upgrade under 2 assumptions, an open floor plan and a traditional floor plan 10% larger than our current space. Submitted by Lauren Itano. Next meeting, July 6th, time TBA.